Hello everyone, welcome to Surfalytics. It's Dmitry, and today we'll talk about data team structures. By the way, don't forget to subscribe, like, and even if you watch just 30 seconds, please like. It's really good for YouTube SEO efficiency. Thank you. So first of all, why it is important? So it probably if you already have some kind of experience, work in data teams, work in data roles, more or less it is clear for you how the team is structured. However, if you used to work just in one company or one, two companies, you maybe have no idea how the company is structured. So today I want to cover different types of the data teams. I will share experience that what companies, what data teams I used to work, and also their pros and cons. And moreover, it's very important if you consider your resume, where you have your title of the company where you used to work, your duties that you used to do. Very often during the interview, you might get the question, and for example, then I run the interview, I always ask this question. So the question is, tell me about your team size and structure, and also in other interesting questions, how many BI users do you have? By BI users, I mean business users, the users who consume your data products, your dashboards, maybe insights, how many of them have? That's why it's important to understand the ratio and understand what exists out there. Because if you tell, I have 1,000 BI users and our team is two people, it doesn't sound right. That's why those numbers, they should be aligned. And also another sub question I have, what is the breakdown by users or self-service power user? Because again, the users could be different types. So it could be more than two because there are simple users there who wants just to open the dashboard, look to the dashboard. But there is in other options as well. You might think about more power user who wants to build the dashboard themselves. Maybe they can use available dashboard and modify this, or maybe they completely want to use the DBT and they need some kind of framework to build the data pipeline. They build their own fact table and the dashboard. So I will start first from a couple examples that I have. The first one is centralized approach. So it doesn't really matter what's the name of the leader of the organization. It could be CTO, it could be VP, it doesn't matter. Someone like executive. And then it could be team lead, could be manager, doesn't really matter. What is matter here is the only one team in the organization usually consists from, of course, if it's a really small company or startup, it might be just one person who doing integration of data, transformations of data, and build some kind of reports and dashboards. Sometimes even there is no any data team or data role. It could be just done by, I don't know, product managers or software engineers. Doesn't really matter. So let's maybe put some breakdown here. We talk about the companies who already mature in some extensions. They understand the value of data warehouse and data team, and they already built some kind. Or maybe they just starting to building this and they need those folks. So of course, this could be a start from single person, but as soon as the data warehouse established, initial pipelines are created and loading the data every day or some dashboards. So the team could have just consist from data engineers and data analysts. It could be one data engineer, one data analyst. It could be many of them. It's not that important that it's single team in the whole organization. And this is centralized approach. There is also could be if you, for example, the company really growing, it is usually hard for one person to manage large team. That's why often you can see that with the breakdown between teams and specializations. For example, this could be the manager for the data engineers, the managers or head of analytics engineers, head of analytics, or it could be slightly different backgrounds and their specialization. And the question, when do you need to split it? It's what I like in Amazon culture. They have different things that are very applicable for almost any companies. So they have term also known like two pizza team. It's the size of the team. And the size of the team is matter because they found in Amazon that the small team, they work more efficient and better and faster versus like the huge team. Also for the managers, because the managers should do performance review, they do often like one-on-one meeting with their team members, so they couldn't just handle big number of people. That's why they decide, okay, the number of people probably good for one person to manage and also to run efficiently the data team and be productive is two pizza size teams. So you can think about if you order two large pizzas, how many people you can fit with the pizza? It's probably around from 6 to like 10 people. This is how it works. This is two pizza team. And there are some benefits of this, right? Small teams have minimized bureaucracy, right? No bureaucracy, maximize time to focus. Um, what else? Yeah, they can do fast and like also the cost of failure and overall cost to manage. Yeah, it's very good. So that's another approach, right? Centralized approach with distributed teams. So it could be completely opposite way. And again, this is for like pretty big companies, because in the small companies, if you're under like 100 employees or 50 employees, doesn't make sense for you to do this distribution of the teams one. But if company reach a certain size, they, for example, their marketing team or the finance team, product team, they decided that unfortunately the data team not moving fast enough. And what they decide to do, they basically have their own initiatives to build their own, I don't know, implement their own BI tool. For example, if the main BI tool for organization Tableau, they're going to, I don't know, Power BI, Looker, they can bring their own solution. So I have very many examples then organizations starting to like their business teams, because usually I'm part of the core team, the business team starting to bring in their own tools. And while on the phase of implementation, everything looks very promising, everything very exciting in the business side of the team, because, for example, if the marketing officer or marketing manager, leader of the marketing team decided, hey, the data team not perform enough, the data quality is questionable. Let me bring my own like data warehouse and my own resources. It's really easy to justify for a leadership team why it should be done. But unfortunately, long term, it will even make the things worse because people tend to leave. Usually those solutions, they lack of best practices and it even could be security concerns, quality concerns, performance concerns. So this route is not very good, but it is still exists. So here's another example of distributed teams. And what we have here, we have our own team, right? Like some data team. Does what kind of structure it has. But also at the same time, we have, for example, product team or could be the marketing team, and they have different products and they have embedded analyst. So in this case, the data team often focusing, and this is a good example, the data team or core team often focusing to build the tools, the frameworks, make sure that the core data sets available, they have the rest of organization have access to them. This is a very good example. And the data analyst, we can consider them as superpower users. They know how to access data warehouse. They might even start building their own fact tables. They can use, for example, in case of DBT, that's very common and popular nowadays, they can do something. They even can bring some extra data sets, maybe using Google spreadsheets, maybe work on their own integrations. So, but this is limited. And first, it's limited, the use case is limited. The second, it's really visible for the core data team. And the core data team established the best practices. So it means the business teams, they gain the speed, they can do whatever they want, but they have certain governance on things they do. And the data team is providing them this guidance, they provide the frameworks, the documentations, and support. There is another example, the very similar, but in this case, business teams decided to go all in. They hire also data engineers, and they're trying to completely split it. Maybe not yet completely split it, but they have more power from the data team. And this could be different scenario because we just talk about the cases then the business team decided to go and build their own solution and completely ignore. And this is more about conflict situation between engineering team and the business team. So that's a role of the leaders to make sure they can manage priorities, they can manage the expectations, and work collaborative together in very efficient manner. But if we look to the big companies, for example, Microsoft, Amazon, probably Meta, and some others, uh, it works very different. The size of company is huge. The data they own is huge. For example, I know, for example, in Microsoft, the core data lake size, I think is around 15 to 20 petabytes, and it's managed by the core data team. And you can find all kind of data. You can find like Microsoft Office data. You can find different product usage data. You can find Xbox data. For example, then I was part of the Xbox team. I was working on extracting some of the Xbox data and then build out my own solution using Databricks and game telemetry, game logs, and sales data I took also from this main data set and then blend all together in analytic solutions. So this is good example for huge organizations. And again, they usually work really well. The size of the team should be small and everyone has their purpose. This team is building their core products. Another team is focusing on building their sub use cases, and they can use the core data sets, the core tools, but they feel free to use their own tools for the work they do. Now we can talk more about examples. And I found these in DBT data teams. So really like how DBT contributes in different like terms, the job descriptions, who doing what, how to focusing on the building good solution, the like different products. Yeah, the great culture, and I think they contribute a lot. That's why we can see that more than 50% of the jobs on the market that they have DBT. That's why my advice to everyone: learn DBT. Doesn't matter what role you have, data scientist, data engineer, start from DBT. And because it's lots of SQL, lots of understanding how data teams operate, how you work with data pipelines, data engineers, and how to build very nice and efficient solution. So their first example was the company HubSpot. Just recently learned that Google wants to acquire HubSpot for $50 billion. It's probably the second marketing automation company after the Salesforce. Maybe they're even bigger now, so 3,000 people. So now we can dive deep and understand, okay, what is their team structure and how big the company. So if we look to here, the company size 3,000 people. Okay, it's pretty big. So what we have here, around 10% of the of organizations using BI tools. So basically, they consume the dashboards, the metrics. It's around 300 people. So you should keep in mind this number. So for any of your job you have in your job description, you should understand, okay, how big is the company size and what percentage is the BI users. So they have also the 5% people who like do deeper understand, maybe advanced users, maybe they like to use it for making the decisions. But anyway, we care about this number. What's the total number of users? So we can say, I work in the company with 3,000 people. It has like 10,000 or 10% BI users, like around 300. We also have some advanced use case for 120 data analyzers, 10 data provisioners, so it's more advanced users. They structure like under a CIO. They have VP of business data, it could be VP of analytics, anything. And then they split like data engineering team, data warehouse team, analytics enablement team. So it's basically focusing on like, either build the dashboards or make sure those dashboard is consuming by the right audience. And also they have embedded analysts who probably can come to data warehouse team, data engineering team, grab the data, build their own insights. Another company, Get Your Guide, 600 employees, almost like 50% is BI users. It's actually a very good metric for the data-driven culture. So this is probably the one of the metrics that you can measure how good your company in terms of data culture, right? Do you use data? Because ideal goal is like to make sure that everyone understands the company metrics, they can measure their work, they can open the dashboard, they can see where they're going and how their work impacts those like key metrics. We have 4 data scientists, 10 data engineers. So here I don't know, this is probably their data team. I don't know. they didn't tell what's big the team. Data provisions, is it like data engineers? 100 data analyzers, is it like data analysts? Who knows? In the company, it could be even like, usually it's several teams because pretty big company size, and could be, I don't know, multiple teams with like 15, 20 people. Yeah, I have no idea what's their structure. Let's look for other examples. Okay, here we have 10 data engineers, 4 data scientists, and 6 data analysts. So it's total like 20 people. 20 people for the size of the company. It could be, there is no good answer. What's the good number? What's the bad number? Of course, it depends on priority, but also it really depends on the culture. For example, I will share some examples. Then you have really high number of engineers and analysts, but the quality of the work they doing is really bad. And I will also talk about the reasons behind this. Okay, the next one is away travel. 250 employees. Their structure is you have director of data and strategy, then you have data engineering belong to software engineering, maybe it could be CTO, and managed data science and analytics. So this is a bit off for me, right? Because I'm questioning how the data engineering team collaborate with data analytics team, or maybe like traditional BI developers who build the dashboards, they part of BI. So it's easily then they under one org, the people who build data warehouse or data lake, and then people who use this data to produce insights. Even the data science team, right? It's good if it could still under the same leadership. But what we have, 50% of organizations, so it's around like 50 BI users, 1 data science, 1 data engineer, 5 data analysts. Yeah, but for this little team, they have 2 like senior leadership. Okay. Next one, La Fleur, small company, commerce, 100 employees, 2% really like advanced users, 30% is already 30 BI users. That totally makes sense. And just 2 analysts who doing like end-to-end, like generalist end-to-end work. Another company, Yarl Commerce, 75 people, company size, 40% of BI users, also does make sense. 1 like a kind of like data engineer, all stack, and 2 people who building the dashboard and analyze the data. The last company is 15 Gifts. It's interesting, 45 employees and like 100% of BI tools. That's good. That's really good ratio that everyone looks to the dashboards and care about the metrics. The team, 3 data science, 5 data analysts, not clear about who is building infrastructure. Probably someone should be build the infrastructure. Or maybe they don't have any data warehouse. No, I think they have DBT, means they have some kind of Redshift, BigQuery, whatever. I also highlight some examples. This is not mine example. It's one of the Surfalytics member about his company that he currently works. So company size 500, it's US company. 500, they build some SaaS products. Their stack is DBT, Snowflake, Fivetran, and Sigma. Their data team just 5 members, 1 of director of analytics. So role of directors usually talk with the business stakeholders, understand the priorities, and remove any blockers from BI users. So make their life easier and efficient. 2 data analysts. So data analysts, it could be just BI developers, depends on the company and their guideline, and they focus on the business domain. They're doing insights, they listen what kind of things should be done for like doing ad hoc queries, for very frequently asked questions. They can build the dashboards, they can train the user how to use the dashboard. To analytics engineers, they don't have any data engineering because they have Fivetran, they have Snowflake, DBT, so it's all, and maybe they even have DBT Labs. That's why you don't really need data engineer if you can leverage Fivetran like DBT Labs, Snowflake, and Sigma because it's all service. Of course, if they growing, I know the data sets will grow, they will need to build custom integrations, and or maybe the cost of Fivetran. It's actually really a solid use case. The cost of Fivetran can grow a lot, and it will be cheaper to own. Maybe with some security constraints. The Fivetran it's SaaS, it's because it's reading your data, and maybe it's not that secure. But there is a very good example that you might completely exist without data engineers. or probably those analytics engineers, they actually doing the work of data engineers. And because for me, the data engineer is traditional role, and then the analytics engineer was introduced. Example number 2. So I used to work in the past, one of Amazon subsidiary, and the size company was 400 people. We use AWS, we build data warehouse on Redshift. I was early adopter of Matillion ETL, and for BI using Tableau, and also some extra cases using Spark. The glue wasn't that popular. I used Elastic MapReduce with the Spark for access logs and like big volume of unstructured data. I think in other cases we have, for example, we run, because we have lots of titles of the books, and we'll run some cool Hive on top of Hadoop like project to do proximity based on the titles. We want to find duplicates, right? Because different sellers can sell similar titles. They can have like slightly different descriptions, but you want to basically find is they have this kind of things. So data team was pretty small, was one team lead slash data engineer, and 2 data engineers, and we didn't have any BIE and analysts. They all were embedded like either sales team or finance team called center team and marketing team. And I found this very efficient because our team was focusing on the building infrastructure, building pipelines, load the data, make it available. Maybe sometimes we can build the Tableau data sources, and then the team use this in the way they want. So, and we also established this idea of the power users in the business department, and I spent lots of time to training them that they were able to build their pipelines in Matillion ETL. It was very easy to use with Visual UI, so it was quite efficient. And I left this team many years ago, and it's still operating the same framework and quite efficient. Another example, I joined Amazon Alexa, 5,000 people. They may be bigger org even right now. I don't know, they're huge org. I have no idea. So, but because it's Amazon, it's always like 2 pizza teams. Our teams was quite small. Our products were like focused on data products, but in other words, it's dashboards. We built dashboards for internal usage for all product managers globally who build features for Alexa. And the case was that people who are adding new features to Alexa, they want to see how it's using. So we have really focused on this. Our stack was AWS, Redshift. I was lucky enough to bring Matillion again, and it really governed the speed because Matillion ETL is like low-code solution, no-code solution. It means it's very comfortable to use for BI or data analysis without like any proper experience. And Tableau. So data team, 10 people, 1 senior product manager who managed the team, 2 technical product managers who like talk with different teams about the features and what should be done and when and how and where to find the data. I was the single data engineer. We had 2 BI engineers because Amazon doesn't have any like data analyst role. 1 data scientist, and who was working on the churn model, and 3 software engineers for cases then we couldn't use Tableau. For example, when we work with PI data, like some data that is critical, and they build like their also called like red application. They also some extension BI tool, but it's completely custom for those like edge cases. My next company example, it was Microsoft Xbox, and the stack was basically based on Azure because it's Microsoft Xbox. We used Azure Data Explorer, Azure Data Lake, and Power BI for BI. The data team was actually, I need to change the number, it's just the 6 people. Yeah, the data team, just 6 members, 1 senior product manager or like just the manager of analytics. We have 2 data engineers, 2 BIE. So role of data engineers, it's integrate with data, either with external sources, for example, different APIs or community boards, or with data engineers. And coming back to use cases. Yeah, for example, sometimes need to bring Xbox data from the core data lake of Microsoft, or maybe sales data, or maybe Game Pass data. Sometimes it's community-based, different forums about the game, or API for some services. And the core data set is actually game telemetry that we're loading in Databricks. And then there is multiple layers in data warehouse or data lake, and we use a medallion architecture. When you have like raw data, bronze, then you transform to staging, silver, and then build fact tables in gold layers. And then BI users, they can connect Power BI and start doing the insights. And yeah, the data science, they're more focusing on the behavior of the users, or maybe some kind like deeper insights. And by the way, all the tools that I mentioned, I will teach you how to use them, and I will teach you how to build all those solutions. Yeah, but one step at a time. Right now, we're still covering some theory, and then eventually we come to actually learning all those tools. The next company, it's pretty big company, 1,000 people, and I joined the company, it was maybe 500 people, maybe, I don't know, 300 people. Then they got big round of investment. They really growing for the year. They had the stack like AWS, Athena, dbt, Miltana, Looker. They have lots of open source, lots of legacy code. The data team size was around 18 members. The structure was one VP of data, and they have also like, and the way you see that all those examples, they like talking about centralized, right? They all the same, right? They all this one. Not all. So Microsoft example and Amazon, they more like this, but for me, they still feels like I'm doing this kind of work or this kind of work. I just have one extra data set from unknown team that I can bring to do the work. And that's why the first two examples, they the most popular, and I suggest you just using those examples in your resume and talking about there was the central team, and maybe sometimes you have like embedded analysts that you collaborate, or maybe you work as an embedded analyst in the marketing or finance team, whatever domain is easy for you. So here, one VP of data, one director of data, then one senior manager of data. Yeah, not sure why. In some extent, it feels like the bigger is headcount, the more important the people on the top, but it's not correlated with the quality of the work. So then there was one analytics engineering team with one manager, analytics engineering, with six analytics engineers who also doing some dashboarding and Looker, one data scientist, one data enablement manager. I think also heard there was like one data governance manager, then that was asked to leave, and one manager for data engineering, 5 data engineers. So the team is pretty big, but because I was this part team, I know that it was very slow, very inefficient, and the root cause is not only because people who manage the team, they couldn't really. So for me, it's the best example of how the data team shouldn't work, unfortunately. Unfortunately, many people who work in the teams, they got impacted by wrong decisions of the leadership team, and also because of lots of legacy code, and no one really care about needs of people. So the managers couldn't do really unblock them and make their work efficient, and somehow it just was broken. And I think it's still the same. So for example, for a very long time, the team really didn't deliver any insights and didn't establish the culture. So that's why shape of the data team also really matter, and their ability to communicate with the business teams and collaborate is also very important. And very often, like if you're in the bottom of the chain, you have no rights and you have no options to change. You can try your best, you can write documents, you can share evidence, you can try to use the power of soft skills and influence, but often it doesn't work. So let's move to another example. Company size around like 600 people, stack AWS, Snowflake, dbt, Looker, Fivetran, Kafka, and Tableau. And this is the Kafka, it's about streaming, and I usually putting the streaming use cases later in my course towards advanced data engineering. And for now, you just don't really need to focus, but I want to highlight a couple of things. So the data team is pretty big and pretty efficient. It's one VP of data who focusing on the business things, what's important, what's less important, one senior manager who overview the whole data team and like different teams. And then we have specialization team. One is data platform. So data platform, and this is common for some companies who requires complicated cases for the streaming. So for example, if you have any like cloud applications or any other things, you probably need to stream your data. For example, even Uber, right? I know Uber really leverage their streaming solution. They use Kafka, I think. So there are many companies who have to use the streaming application. It's just their culture of the streaming. So because then you integrate data with data warehouse or especially data lake, you have two options: batch and stream. And sometimes you have the hybrid. So for example, you can stream. Even then, I used to work with Xbox. We stream all the telemetry as a JSON files, right? And then using the batch to process them every hour. But in the same way, I could use the streaming to stream the data to the staging and then to make the data available sooner than later. And I even did POC on this using Spark structure streaming, but the batch usually is good enough. But in the platform team, they usually have the platform engineers. It's a kind of like software engineers who are focusing on the streaming, building the platform. So they usually have the Kafka clusters and they make sure that it's operating very well. It could be not Kafka, could be any other streaming solution. Of course, if it's any managed versions like Confluent or like Kinesis, it's definitely easier to do, but it is what it is. So then there is one manager of data pipelines team, or in other words, this team is focusing on integrations of raw data and external sources with Snowflake data warehouse and make it available on staging for, they have like 5 data engineering, and then another team like data warehouse team with own manager. They building the data warehouse itself, they build the data model, they think about the quality of the metrics and how to good use and basically connect this raw data in staging with the business users' needs. They have like 5 data engineers, 2 analytics engineers, and then they also have data governance manager. They have data enablement management. Data governance manager, it's good to have. It's because all data, all assets you have, they need some kind of like rules. They need some kind of descriptions, the business logic. This is all important. This is what is data governance manager is doing. The enablement manager, I think this is the person who helps everyone to make sure that data assets they produce, they actually in use. And then there is technical product manager. Sometimes you have extra product managers or technical product manager who focusing on the certain areas. So for example, this company has this kind of product manager focusing on the general architecture and how to move the needle to improve the usage, decrease time to insights, and improve the quality. And also there's like a couple data analysts or also people who like BI developers who build the dashboards and calculate some business metrics in the dashboards. In my last example, company 300 people. The data team is just 6 people, and they're running on Google Cloud. They're using Trino, dbt, Metabase, Arbite. They have open source focus deployed on Kubernetes. Data team 6 members, 1 director of data, 3 data engineers, 2 analytics engineers. So this is a true 2-pizza team, 2 pizza-sized team, and despite the fact it's running on open source, it has good support of DevOps team. It's really unblocked, and they have full control of things, what's happening and what they can do. Yeah, I bet they're pretty busy, but it is what it is. And yeah, that's just another example of the company. Yeah, and for idea for you is exercise. For all of your resume, you need to build something similar. So for each of the position, and the more deeper you're going in details, like who is leading team, how many people, what they're doing, how they communicate, and so on, it definitely will help you to answer interview questions. That's it for this lesson. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe, like, and even if you watch just 30 seconds, please like. It's really good for YouTube's SEO efficiency. Thank you.